Hey, what is going on, everybody? I wanted to talk about Stan Lee because he, as you may already know, passed away today. And I wanted to pay my respects to him and just kind of go into a little bit of a talk about this man and how brilliant he really was, and even how much he meant to me. Because to millions of people, Stan Lee was an icon. This man created some very important and iconic characters like Spider-Man and X-Men, Iron Man, Fantastic Four. He's done a lot, and there's so many more I could mention. And Stan Lee has really provided people with enjoyment, and he is someone who really brought a lot to the entertainment industry, and he's such an important figure, and it's tragic to see someone who has brought so much inspiration, hope, love, talent, and creativity. It's sad to have seen him finally pass. And the thing is, yes, he was older. He was 95, and that is a long and good life. This man worked very hard to get where he was, and it's very sad to see such a wonderful person finally pass on, who has just brought joy to the world, who has brought entertainment, not just through comics, but through cinematic universe as well. People love Stan Lee, and, you know, he is an inspiration to many, including myself. And Stan Lee has done a lot in his lifetime. Back in 1939, Stan Lee himself, he actually became an assistant at the New Timely Comics division of Pulp magazine, and in the 1960s, this evolved into Marvel Comics. And Stan Lee had even stated what his first jobs were, and he stated that the artist back in the day would dip the pen in ink, and so he had to make sure the inkwells were filled. He even said that he would do proofreading and he erased the pencils from the finished pages from them, which is actually pretty cool. And even in Stan Lee's childhood, he wanted to actually be a writer. He had the ambition for it. And what I have to say is, he had creativity. And when Stan Lee actually made his first comic book debut, it was with the text filler Captain America Foils the Traitor's Revenge in the third issue of Captain America, which was back in May of 1941. And at that time, his name was Stanley Lieber, and then he adopted the name Stan Lee over time, which is an interesting little fact about Stan Lee for those of you who may not have known that. And over time, he really worked his way up. This man had a knack for business. He was a smart person. He loved his fans, and just how much he wanted to do with entertainment. I am just in awe with how well he did things, with how much he loved his fans, with how well he did the comics and getting them together and creating so many characters that people can relate to and that they love, and that has taught people lessons in their own life even. And I can easily say that they have taught me things. And I can sit here and say that I really related to a lot of these characters that Stan Lee created. They really helped me through very hard times in my life, and I'm sure that for those of you that are watching this, I'm sure a lot of you can say the same. And if you didn't read the comics and if you just saw the movies, then maybe you found a way to relate to those characters through the movies, or maybe even some of the TV shows based off the characters that he had. There are multitudes of ways that people have found Stan Lee, whether it be through comics or other forms of media, and he has impacted people's lives so dramatically. And it's so hard to see someone so precious to millions, someone that was an inspiration to people becoming artists or comic book artists or writers. You know, there's so many ways that Stan Lee affected everyone's life, and it's so hard to see someone that's so impactful finally go. And it's hard for that. It's sad, it's tragic, and I have to say that even for me, even though I never got to meet him, just seeing things that involved him, seeing interviews, things of that sort, he just genuinely seemed like he cared. He seemed like he loved his audience and that he was grateful to everybody. And it means so much to me to see someone be that way, to show that care, that love, and that concern. And even through his comics, he showed that he cared, and it was just brilliant. And it's just sad. It's hard to see someone like this go. And it's sad for me because my reasons, and here are my thoughts personally on Stan Lee. He was an inspiration to me because I myself am an artist, and it really hurts to see someone that's an inspiration go, someone you look up to. And he was certainly one of the bigger inspirations for me as an artist. And although I never met the man, his comics brought so much joy to my life. Even when times were down, even though I was going through some very hard moments of my life, he brought joy to me. He taught me several things. And honestly, it's hard to see someone that taught you life lessons, even though they weren't there in person. You saw it through their work, their material, and to see that person pass on, it's so hard. And for me, it's a hard thing because I learned so much from his comics, and they brought me so much joy. And it's not just me, it's several people that Stan Lee has impacted through his comics alone. There are several people who grew up reading his comics that really taught them things. And it's so hard that he's gone now. But I could never thank him enough for what I was able to learn from what he had. And it's hard for all of us to see such an iconic and wonderful person go. So, Stan, rest in peace, and thank you for the joy you have brought to all of us. I want to say thank you. And for those of you who may have an old Stan Lee comic, treasure those. Treasure what joy he brought to the world. And never forget him, because he was a great and brilliant man. Stan Lee, you will never be forgotten. And may you rest in peace. And thank you for the joy you brought to the world. You were definitely a wonderful soul. And please, everyone, have a wonderful day. And take care of yourselves and everyone around you. Have a wonderful day, everybody.